All right, good morning. We are going into part 3 of 5.01b. The last part of this is finding a missing angle. So in the last video, we learned how to find a missing side where it gives us one of the angles and gives us one side. So when it does that, we have to use trig functions to be able to do that. So today we're going to use trig to find a missing angle. And when you have to find a missing angle, you must take the inverse. Well, the inverse is actually the same buttons as your sine, cosine, and tangent on your calculator. But before you press those, you have to press the second. So if you look at your calculator, right above in blue font is sine with a -1. And above a cosine button is a cos with a -1. And above the tangent button is a tan with a -1. That means inverse. Okay, so when we take the inverse, it looks something like this. Now, nothing changes. So when we want to find the measure of an angle, it's still sine when we have to use the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Okay? So same thing with cosine. So when we want to find an angle, we use the inverse of cosine and we do adjacent over hypotenuse. And then last but not least, when we have angle X, we're trying to find angle X and we use the opposite side over the adjacent side, we're going to use the tangent inverse. Okay, so this is kind of the key to being successful with these. Okay, so everything is calculator based, meaning like you're going to be able to solve all of this using the calculator. You just have to input it in the calculator correctly. Okay. All right, so for example, we're going to find angle A on this one. And it gives us the values of AB being 84 and BC being 100. Well, if I want to find angle A, the steps that we've been doing never change. So the first thing we need to do, if we're looking for angle A, is label the side lengths in comparison to angle A. So BC, which has a value of 100, is opposite, so it gets labeled with O or OPP. Okay, and then 84 is adjacent, so it gets labeled with ADG or ADJ, or I just put A usually. Okay, so when this happens, now we need to pick a trig function that uses both opposite and adjacent, which is tangent. Okay. Okay, so opposite and adjacent is tangent. So in order to find angle A, I'm going to use tangent inverse because I'm trying to find an angle, and then set up the ratio just like we did on day 1. So it's always opposite over adjacent. Okay, so it's going to be 100 over 84. So how you plug this in your calculator is, so if you need help putting it in your calculator, you're going to press the second button, which is the blue button at the top left. You're going to press tan, which should give us, so it should look like on your calculator, tangent inverse. It should look like that. Okay, so when you do that, then you're going to do 100 divided by 84, and then you're gonna close the parenthesis. Okay, and it should give you your answer. Okay, so this is kind of what you plug into the calculator right here. All right, and when you do that, you should get 49.9, which then rounds up to 50 degrees. So angle A is 50 degrees. All right, so let's do this next one. Okay, we're trying to find angle T. So again, we want to label our side lengths. So if we want to find angle T, we're going to label the sides it gives us in comparison to that angle. So SR, which has a value of 5 on it, is opposite, so it gets labeled with an O. And then 5.7 is the hypotenuse because it's across the 90-degree angle. So the trig function that uses O and H is sine. Okay, so we're going to use the sine inverse. So in order to find angle T, I'm going to use the sine inverse and then put it in its ratio. Well, the sine ratio is opposite over adjacent, so it's 5 over 5.7, and you're going to plug that in your calculator. So again, press the second button, press the sine button, and it should look like sine -1 to the power of -1. And then you're going to type in 5 divided by 5.7, and then close the parentheses and press enter. And it should give you 60 point something, 61.3 degrees, and we're going to round it to 60 degrees. 61 degrees, sorry. Okay. Okay, well now I want you to find angle R. Now when we go to find angle R, there are 2 ways to do this. So we can do it the trigonometry way and just label our side lengths. So the 5, instead of being opposite from angle R, it is now adjacent to angle R. And then 5.7 is still the hypotenuse. So the side, the trig ratio that uses adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. And that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So we'll use the cosine inverse and then type in 5 divided by 5.7 because that's the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And you should get 28 point something, and we're going to round it to 29. Okay? Or if you trust your work and know that angle T is correct, remember all the angles in a triangle equal 180. Okay, so angle S plus angle T plus angle R equal 180. Well, angle S is 90 degrees. Angle T we just found, which is 61 degrees. So again, this is if you trust your work, and we're trying to find angle R. And the reason being is because if angle T is wrong, what you first found, then everything's about to be wrong. But if you go ahead and do the trig ratio again, you could essentially double check your work. Okay, so now we're going to add these 90 and 61, and we should get 151. And then in order to get angle R by itself, we're going to subtract 151. So angle R equals 29 degrees. So either way, you get the same answer. This is also some way that you can double check. If you wanted to do like the adding, if you wanted to do all the angles in a triangle add up to 180 and then check it with the trig ratio to see if your answers are correct, you could do that too. But with experience and grading tests in the past, I would stick to this right here, just doing the trig ratios, just to kind of double check your answers, because just in case maybe you put this ratio wrong or you chose the wrong trig function. Okay. All right. Be on the lookout for more about trigonometry. Bye.